Yo, I got something to say. Hey, this is Frank Lee. I am the host of I Got Something to Say. I got a special show out here today with someone who's very important to me, and over the last couple of years has grown to be part of my family, another mother to me, Miss Vicki McBride. And her testimony, her story is very, very powerful. I'm doing this show because I believe that somebody can actually gain from her life. And so that's the reason why I have her on the show. Ms. Vicki, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to have you on the show. Again, like I said, I'm trying to share your testimony, your story to the people who are out there. And so here we are. You know, I've been wanting to do this show for a while. So, yep, we are here. So tell us about yourself. Tell us where you're from and what's going on right now for you.
Well, I'm originally from a small town in Georgia called Waynesboro.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up there as a child. When I was born, I was actually born to a woman in Augusta, Georgia, and she put me up for adoption. So at 8 months, my family, the McBride family, adopted me. And I was raised by a teacher and a mortician. So all my life, I had, I would say, the best of everything that I there was nothing that I wanted for. But I felt an emptiness in my spirit for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 13, I encountered a really bad situation. At the time, I couldn't put words to it because I didn't know exactly what it was. But as a result, at 14, I became a mother.
Mm.
So that was a turning point in my life because at 14, the last thing any young lady should be confronted with is the decision of how to parent a child.
Mm.
Of course, in retrospect, and as I proceed or go on through life, God had already determined the beginning, the middle, and the end of this situation. So, of course, my eyes did not see that, nor did my heart understand it. Fortunately, with the support of my family, my mom never hindered me from being able to pursue or strive for any of the goals that I had set in my life. So I was allowed to finish high school, and I went on to college. I finished college in 1979, and at that time I finished high school in 79. And when I finished college in 1985, at that time I had two sons. I had my oldest son, which was I guess he was about 6 or 8, and then I had my 2-year-old. So during those years, I was married, but my husband was in the military, so I was sort of kind of doing the single parent thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, support, so that's a family support, was the key in my success in being able to go on to college.
Mm-hmm.
After finishing college, I worked for several years for the government. I lived in Savannah, Georgia, Warner Robins, Georgia, Beaufort, South Carolina. And then I moved to Sumter, South Carolina, which at that time I was married to another gentleman. And when I moved to Sumter, I had a daughter. And a couple of years later, or not quite even 2 years later, I had another son. So by this time, at the age of 32, I had my 4 children. And my oldest son, which was the young man I had at the age of 14, he was beginning to go through a lot of life struggles in the juvenile system, being a delinquent. And it didn't just start at the age of 15. He had been doing things throughout his upbringing. He was constantly getting in trouble in school. And I was having to try to bail him out and get him on the right track and figure out where I went wrong, because I thought I was being the best parent that he could have. and not understanding it. But then he had a grandmother who supported and enabled all of this behavior. So he and I went through a lot of turmoil because of my grandmother. I mean, my mother, his grandmother, and the fact that I had given birth to him at such a young age. He viewed me more as his sister as opposed to being his mother. And so establishing my position in his life was one of the challenges that I had to face with him. So by the time he turned 19, he had encountered some trouble which got him locked up in a detention facility and given 2 felonies in his life. And those felonies, little did we know, would follow him throughout his adulthood. And when he came out of that, at that time, I think I was married. Of course, I still had the 4 children, but I was raising yet another little boy. And his journey was beginning while Maurice's, my oldest, was hopefully at the end of his. As a mother, I was trying to set an example of positive energy, positive attitude. Education is the only way. And just trying to inspire all of my children to follow a path that would definitely not lead them to destruction. Well, as I said, the felonies haunted Maurice throughout his life. He finished high school with a GED. A few years later, he finished his bachelor's degree at DeVry University. After finishing at DeVry, he decided to go to AIU, and he got his master's in business. And the whole time he was doing this, I asked him, what is your motivation? He said, 1, I've got 2 strikes against me. He said, I'm a black male, and I have felonies. He said, but my biggest motivation is when I grow up, I want to be just like you.
That's good. Very inspirational.
Yeah, well, of course, again, God does everything decent and in order. So in him saying that, I just said, okay, but I didn't realize what was around the corner. So while he was finishing up his master's, I think in 99 I had received mine. So at that time we both had a bachelor's and a master's degree. And a little while after that I entered into grad school to get my doctorate. So he and I both had talked about, I was in one college and he was thinking about getting his. So at one point, 3 years into my program, he said, why don't you transfer and let's go to the same school and get our doctorate? I said, well, that'd be fine. I said, because I really don't like this program that I'm in. And I said, we need to find something that will give us a definitive, start date and end date. So we did that, and we ended up at the same university, Capella University, in 2009. He was in organizational management, which is a business program, and, of course, I was in education. So as we started that journey, we basically were one another's support system. Some of the things that we did were similar in our studies, but as we were getting closer to the end, he was held up by his committee for almost a year with his dissertation. And whenever he was being held up, I was encouraging him. I said, you need to make some changes. You need to do this. You need to do that. I was still muddling through trying to get to where he was. He actually surpassed me in our writing. So towards the end, we were on the same track at one point, and I said, well, how much longer, how much more do you have to get done? And so we were kind of going neck and neck. And I told him, I said, it looks like if you get this done by April or May, we might be able to graduate together.
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah. He said, it looks like if you get this turned in and accepted, you'll be finishing up at the same time. I said, yeah. I said, that's strange because I was ahead of you, and then you got ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So, again, God was in the background working things out.
Yeah.
So, in June of 2013, we both got an email from our school which said, congratulations, you have been accepted for commencement as of August 2013. August 10, 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So, on August the 10th, Maurice and I both received our PhDs in our respective fields, which made us not only the first parent and child to receive their terminal degree, but we were from Capella University, but we were the first parent and child to receive our terminal degrees in the nation. You see many stories about families of parents and children going to high school together, college together, and maybe even grad school, but you will not be able to find anyone whose parent and child received their doctorate together on the same day from the same school, but us. If you type our names in, if you Google us, you'll get up 3 or 4, 5, 6 pages about that story.
Wow.
After the graduation, Ebony Magazine contacted us, and they did a page in their February 2014 issue. They dubbed us the Dynamic Duo, in which, to some extent, we were a dynamic duo in the way that it all played out. Excuse me. BET recognized us as the most inspirational story of 2013. And Huffington Post made us their #1 listing in October, I think. No, sorry, it was in August. It was immediately after graduation. Huffington Post posted our story as #1 on their website. So many things have transpired as a result of that. But again, I didn't know in 1975 on November the 18th that the young man that I brought into the world would be my counterpart or my partner in time for academic excellence, because no one could have ever told me, one, that I would become a doctor, and two, that both me and my son would be a doctor.
Wow.
As I continue on, I have another one that is following in the same path as his older brother. And you can jump in any time you want to.
I probably will.
You want to speak on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And my baby was my heart, and he still is, and he knows it. He began behavior issues at the age of 2. And I remember he was in a daycare with a woman who was a prayer warrior. She would anoint him. She said he would come in sometimes when he'd come in the morning, he'd have a look in his eyes, and she would just speak to Satan and begin to pray him out of my son. For her to see that at the age of 2 really was an indication that something just wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
When he became about 4, he started telling me about these dreams he was having. He said, "Mama," he said, "the devil's after me. The devil keeps bothering me." And I keep saying, "Baby, he doesn't want you. He wants your purpose." Mm-hmm. And many times I would continue to tell him, just repeat the 23rd Psalm. I said, God is watching over you. You can't let the devil have you. And he didn't understand it. And I knew at that age that indeed he had a purpose. Just to know what it was, but the devil would be after him and fighting him the way that he was, and it was going to be something that would be magnificent and would magnify God. So as he got older, he got in trouble in school. We moved from North Carolina to Virginia, and I wanted it to be a start over for him, a do-over, or maybe a different